Alright, folks, hey, I'm Joy. Welcome to the channel. Doing a live today. Just looking at this list of universities that have gone test optional. Of course, our subject for this live today, and I'm like scrolling through this list, and I wish I could like say every single one, but there are like hundreds of colleges now that have gone test optional. Let me make sure the volume is good and y'all can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Wait, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I need to, oh yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see the mix. So I guess you folks can hear me then. That's good. Alrighty. Be able to hear me. Alright, so yeah, so we're talking about test optional colleges today, and really what are colleges gonna even assess applicants on if there's no SAT, ACT scores? I was gonna title this video "So Long College Board," but I think they might make it because there's still AP tests around for the time being. But yeah, I mean, I really do think this is the end of admissions tests. I think like Harvard and Yale might be like one of the last two Ivy Leagues still holding on, but even Harvard has maybe even suspended their admissions. Is that on here? I can just look instead of guessing. Yeah, so they've suspended the test for 2021 admission cycle. So at that point, long live the ACT, SAT, because, that I think it's gone at this point. Not coming back, but that is okay. I never even took the SAT, but I remember, sweating. It was just a muggy, gross Saturday when I had to go take the ACT. I took it 2 times, ACT for the second time, and it was just not my day. Not that had anything to do with the score I got, but I just it's just crazy. Let me get my drink here so I can keep going. All right, so what are we gonna talk about? Oh yeah, so I'm considering and thinking about, because I usually for the last 4 or 5 years now, I think maybe 4 years, I've been an admissions reader for the University of Washington a couple times, and then University of Washington 3 times, and now the University of California, San Diego for 1 year. And, University of Washington by far, and you'll even see this if you look at really deep at some reports on diversity and, holistic reviews in admissions. Like University of Washington is one of those schools that's, I think the whole university system last year, the 3 campuses were each top 10 as far as being holistic in the admissions review process. So I think University of Washington is already doing it right in a lot of ways. And so University of California, San Diego, same way. Whereas I would say University of Washington had 9 different admissions factors that we would look at when we assess candidates, between personal and academic. UC San Diego has 14, so it's not like UC San Diego is less holistic. But there are a lot more academic factors that they look at. I would say explicitly SAT subject scores and what else do they look at? Well, I did international applications too last year, so I looked at a lot of TOEFL scores and A levels and GSCE. I don't even know if I'm saying the acronym right. So yeah, I mean they're already all holistic, but I was thinking about what are these schools gonna do now that their ACT, SAT scores are no longer a part of the admissions factory testing. Because I would say I said it earlier, if you split admissions assessments, you submit your application, and it's gonna be divided into 2 sections really: personal factors and academic factors. Now those academic factors would be composed of primarily, if I had to say the top 4, grades, course rigor, so how difficult your courses are, whether they're general, advanced, advanced placement, IB, honors, college level. So I said grades, course rigor, of course SAT, ACT scores, admission scores, the subject of our video here, and then maybe senior year rigor and schedule. So basically where you decided to take the year off senior year, or if you kept at it and took a bunch of extra more courses and demonstrated intellectual, I don't know, rigor or something, however they want to call it. So yeah, so those four factors. Now again, take out ACT SAT score, and you got to think what's going to take the place. Well, I really thought about it, and I'm like, what's the point of the ACT SAT? Really, the SAT and the ACT is meant to provide an objective assessment of a student's readiness for college. So grades can be inflated. One teacher to the next, even in the same school, teaching the same subject, could give an A with, excellent work completed. The other teacher gives an A with a person looking at the same two students would give, standard. So A for both students, different teachers, different levels of work, but they both got an A. That's not the case with ACT, supposedly. Now, SAT claims to be objective. And we all know there are a lot of factors that go into who does well on the SAT, and who doesn't. Let's put that aside and say that it's supposed to be an objective assessment of college readiness. It measures your math, your writing, reading, for some of the subject tests, science, I don't know, all kinds of different subjects that are the core subjects that any college expects a student to be able to master if they want to do college level curriculum. And so when we look at what's gonna replace this type of evaluation, this objective, every student on a Saturday, whatever month it is, goes in and takes the ACT at the same time. Everyone goes in on a Saturday in October and takes the ACT at the same time. The questions are consistent across the board. And so in that way, it's objective. And so I think when I consider what colleges will replace the ACT and SAT with, I definitely I cross out, and I know it's going to be a no-go. I don't think there will be more emphasis on personal factors. I don't think colleges are going to say, okay, now that we don't have the test as an admissions factor anymore, let's replace it by emphasizing the personal statement more. Or let's replace it by emphasizing volunteer work or a job. I don't think that's going to happen, just because I think there are, like those things I mentioned, there are already a number of different areas that colleges look at to assess a student's interest in their personal background and whether they've been through adversity or have specific challenges that are based beyond any factor that they control. So I don't think that's going to happen. And I think that's especially difficult with colleges who have weighted admission standards. So, with, let's just say, college, UCSD, University of California, San Diego. This may not be the case, but let's just use it for an example. University of California considers 14 factors, and none of them, there's no equal weight. You just kind of consider these 14 factors, and combine these 14 factors, give you a score. Now, SAT, ACT is considered, but it doesn't necessarily equal a 1 out of 14, but it is one of the factors. Now, the school with weighted scores, the opposite is true. And a score, the ACT, SAT score is one of 14 factors, and if you did really well, perfect ACT, SAT score, then you get a 1. Without that, then that is gone. And so what do we replace that 1 out of 14 with, so that we still have 14 factors by which we can assess a student? I think that's basically how the weighting would go. And so it'd be harder for colleges like that have a system that is based on percentages and pluses and equals this set number. How do we sum for that? Or this, not even a set number, but this combines to equal a number. How do we make sure that we're still assessing for that score? Wow, even that confused me. I hope that makes sense. But I don't think they're going to replace it with a personal score. I said all that to say that. And so what are colleges going to replace it with? I put on my thinking cap, as Steve from Blue's Clues used to say. I think number one and I did think about the difference between domestic and international students, because the evaluations are different. They're not the same. You're not going to get the same. I think I want to hear some music in the background. Do I want to turn that up? I can't get it to repeat. Let me take a pause here. Loop. That's what I would do, right? I would loop it. like the music in the background. So yeah, so I broke it down into domestic and international students because I think there are going to be maybe some different weighting happening. For domestic students, I looked at I think that I put it in my phone notes actually, not on my notepad. Like I said before, College Board is not dead, and that's because I think that some colleges who are very much attuned to testing a lot of academic areas, like UC San Diego, again, who looks at SAT subject scores and AP test scores, whereas other colleges don't necessarily really factor that stuff in. I think these colleges that are, known for stringent academic standards are going to rely more heavily on AP and IB scores. So, that being said, I think if you want to distinguish yourself now, instead of getting a 1600 on the SAT or 36 on the ACT, I'm no advocate for standardized testing, but I think what colleges are going to replace this objective standardized testing, i.e. ACT and SAT, it's going to get replaced with, because some colleges are lazy, but that's not it. But because also I think schools want to maintain an objective measure of academic readiness that is, I don't know if it's less biased, but it's still objective in the sense that every student is taking the same test, AP and IB tests. So I'm kind of rambling on here, but I think colleges, instead of replacing SAT and ACT tests with more personal evaluation, I think they're going to move to a reliance on AP scores, IB scores. So if you're taking AP physics, they're going to expect you to see AP score and expect to see a 5 or a 4. And in lieu of a 1600 or a 1540 or whatever that equivalent SAT score might have been. Likewise, they're going to want to see those 7s on the IB test. If you have a full IB curriculum and you want to set yourself apart academically when grades can be inflated and when a 4.0 might not be a 4.0 in a different school, in a different zip code, in a different country or a different state. I think the way that you distinguish yourself academically is by having 10 5s on the AP test, 6 7s on IB scores. Why am I saying 7? 5? I'm feeling 7. On the IB test. And so, I'm not the person that says load up, take every possible difficult class you can. You need to pack your schedule. There's no way you can take a break senior year. But I'm just calling colleges out for what they are. There wouldn't have been a reliance on the SAT and ACT scores for such a long time if colleges didn't believe in the ability of tests from companies like the College Board to assess college readiness. Is it right or wrong? I err on the side of caution and say that, I'd rather understand who a kid is as a person, if they're going to be my peer, my classmate, than what they got on a test score. But again, a college is a place of academic learning, so I think both count for something. And thus, I think that's going to be one of the major things. IB test scores. That was 453. Okay. And so I think number 2 is going to be what's going to replace these admissions tests as the gold standard. I think it's right along the lines of what I talked about with the AP and IB testing. In order to take those tests, most students don't, self-study. They're in those classes. So I think colleges are also going to rely on how many advanced classes you're taking in context. So I don't mean a student whose school has 15 advanced placement 15 different subjects and 15 different classes, AP classes you can take. I don't assess that student the same as a student whose school has 5 AP classes that they could have possibly taken. So when I say the number of advanced courses, college level, beyond, general, and context, I'm meaning you, student A, did you take more advanced placement IB courses, college level courses than student B at your school as student B with the same amount of resources at your school. That's really what I think colleges are going to assess, because not only does that show like that you're willing to take a rigorous course load, but that if you attain a passing score AB, you 3.0, 4.0 grade point average, then across the board, when we have a standard curriculum like a standard AP IB curriculum and you got an A in that curriculum, I can believe that as an admissions officer that you're academically ready for the core classes that you took the AP or IB course in. And so, absent SAT, ACT scores, I think colleges will fall back on those objective academic standards that haven't gone away yet. And I think they'll namely be like these objective measures that can easily replace the AP and IB test. No, excuse me, the SAT and ACT test. I don't think testing is going away. I think colleges are going to heavily rely on students distinguishing themselves by having 4s and 5s on AP tests, 6s and 7s on IB test. I think that colleges will want to see students take a significant level of rigorous courses, not to the extent that they can't maintain a good GPA and actually meet the standards of the coursework, but that they're just setting themselves apart from their peers. Meaning, again, student A took 7 AP courses that the school had available, while I took 15. And so, all things being equal, 9 times out of 10, I'm more academically prepared because I took more AP courses, and I got a good grades in those AP courses. So, not just taking them and failing, and then 3 or C, I did well on the AP test. And I did say that I think there is gonna be, when learning, I'll step back. So learning to like assess international applications, I have seen, and we do get trained to know that and to understand that international students do really well on ACT and SAT scores, and especially on the math section. So in a lot of ways, those test scores can distinguish international students from domestic students, when you tend to see higher test scores, especially science, math, subject tests, science, math, from international students. Don't know what that says about anything, but that's what the data says. So again, absent the SAT and ACT scores for international students, again, that distinguishes them from their domestic students, in some cases, domestic applicants. I think that, I know, because I see it already, that colleges are gonna put more emphasis on English proficiency for international applicants. Because I'll say, like, SAT and ACT scores are one of the single factors that keep students out of colleges. You rarely see a personal statement keep a student out of a college, whether it's written really, really well or just okay, or even in some cases just like not so great. Great test scores and good grades could offset a bad personal statement. And so I think that that may not be the case for domestic students, where the personal statement can really make the difference. But I think with seeing that international students tend to universally have better test scores, test better, that if those test scores don't exist and we're assessing college readiness, which includes being able to be successful in an English language curriculum. So one of the reasons where we require international applicants to take an SAT or ACTs, because it tests for English language skills on the English part or the reading sections. Same thing with the TOEFL. Most students, or the IELTS, or IELTS. Again, some of these acronyms are just tongue twisters. That's why we require international applicants to take those scores. Half of it's are they English language proficient? So without those tests as admission standards, I think you'll see either I think you'll see one thing. You'll see international students still opt to take it because, again, assessment in part improves that they're English language proficient. Without that test, that might not be the case. And then two, I think colleges will put more emphasis on English language proficiency in the personal statement because you won't get that same assurance that a student will be successful in English language curriculum if the SAT and ACT don't exist and it's gone years from now. So if I do get an application, for instance, where an international applicant hasn't had the chance to take an SAT or ACT yet, or the TOEFL or IELTS, then I'm looking at their personal statement. Like, is everything coherent? Does it flow? Is it understandable? Not that it's written like a native English speaker, but, can they be successful in class? That's about a line. So I think, kind of went on about 30 minutes there, 25 with just looking at the beginning, but living in a post-COVID world where we've seen really the death knell in admissions tests, and I can't say that I'm like mad about it or angry. I think it's really a step in the right direction. I've talked about it in many of my videos already that in many cases standardized tests aren't 100% accurate assessment of a student's ability, but a student's socioeconomic background, students from I don't even know how to say this, students from wealthier families and students from members of society who have college educated parents, more often than not non-students or not students of color or black students. It's just not a fair assessment because it's more an assessment of the resources your school has or the resources your parents has. So I don't miss these tests. That's what I think colleges are gonna do now that these tests are no longer gonna really carry that much weight. I think colleges are gonna they're going to fall back on the APIB test until we say no more with those either. I don't think they're going to last very much longer after the whole fiasco with the AP test. I mean, that was a total SHIT show. Can I even say that on YouTube? It's probably going to get my video censored. Yeah. That's what I got. What do I think they're going to do? I do like the music better. Let's see. Alright, well, my name is Joy. That's what I got for today. That's my long rant. My throat's so dry because I really talked for 30 minutes straight, but that's what I got with respect to, what's the deal? What should I focus on now that there's basically no SAT, ACT anymore? What can I do? That's what I think it is. That's what I think is going to be the answer. Until next time, I will talk to you later, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Definitely